Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we have Dr. Alan Bollinger of Primary Healthcare and Kent, a guest with firsthand experience with medically assisted treatment of drug dependency and addiction. This is an extremely important issue in Iowa as we are now facing an opioid epidemic that can have disastrous consequences for Iowans. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
I had the opportunity to meet you at a wonderful public forum, and you were very popular there, I might add. People thought you had a tremendous candor about the problem and how it works. Tell us a little bit about how you see the opioid epidemic and the problem in Iowa.
I would say that dealing with more and more patients on a frequent basis, it's worse than anybody is aware of. And since I've been in primary care, which is almost a year now, they've been very supportive and opened up more opportunities for me to get patients in to see them for medically assisted treatment. And the demand is huge, but the opportunity to get treatment is much less than it should be for a multitude of reasons. But from what the more I see patients, the more I realize that the epidemic is much worse than is being reported based on the CDC numbers, because there are a lot of the patients that aren't getting the treatment, and when they overdose, they're not actually being visited by EMS or going to the emergency rooms.
So we're seeing what you're saying is the tip of the iceberg in
Absolutely.
traditional medicine. Now, one of the interesting things about what you do is a specialty called medically assisted treatment.
Correct.
Which, again, I'm not a doctor, but from what I have heard, is, they say, the best way to treat opioid and heroin addiction.
From the experience that I've had, and I've been doing this for almost 7 years, it's the best treatment that I've seen. Buprenorphine, naloxone, or Suboxone is the medication. The alternative is naltrexone, but it basically takes away the person's urge to use illicit drugs and gives them the opportunity to get the counseling that they need so that they can get their life back.
Now, these are given under supervision of a doctor.
Yes. It
takes the place of the drug without all of the negative effects, but some of them. So you actually wean somebody off the medication over time?
It's called opiate replacement therapy. Okay. So I'm replacing the drug that you're using, which has far more risk and obviously is not supervised, with a drug that has much less risk, and like it is still an opiate, so there is some risk. But the beauty of buprenorphine is that it's very difficult to get high on. It's very difficult to abuse, and actually, if you are using at the time you start it, it will put you in withdrawal. So to start the drug, what we require is that whatever drugs you've been using, you have to be off of those opiates for at least 48 hours before you can start the medicine.
Now, we have seen from other guests on the show that we have a lot of misconceptions out there. I mean, a lot of Iowans don't recognize how bad the problem is. You're saying it's a lot worse than we even know. Other people have heard about naloxone, which first responders have used, right, but they think it's a cure. It's not. It only delays potentially even more disastrous consequences if there's no treatment.
Right.
And I have heard that the problem with medically assisted treatment, other than stigmas of using drugs to treat drug abuse, is the fact that it's a very expensive process.
It is if you look at the direct cost. It's not if you look at the indirect cost, because
now, what would you classify as the difference between direct and indirect
Well,
costs?
the cost of the medication, if you're having to pay for it out of pocket, and you're on a typical dose, could be, if it's the generic version, $300 a month. Mm-hmm. That said, since research shows that if you're getting medication-assisted treatment, the likelihood that you're going to get HIV or hepatitis C, that goes way down. And the medication to treat hepatitis C is about $900 a day.
So, and if you're buying opioids or heroin on the open market, it's going to be more money than paying for the stuff you're treating with.
And that doesn't count the EMS rescue going out and the ER visits and ICU admissions and people who end up with anoxic brain injury and are in a care facility for the rest of their life. Those costs are huge compared to the cost of medicine.
Now, we're also seeing a difference in what a drug addict is today, or what addiction is as an illness. You know, the stigma was often attached to the problem for various sociological reasons, but now we're seeing regular people that had no interest in doing drugs because of being prescribed these drugs become addicts.
True.
So that's a radical change. Is this something you're also seeing in the treatment world? There's a new population of people?
Well, there are varying ways that people get to the opiate dependency and abuse. When we do an intake on a patient, we ask them, how old were you when you got started? How did you get started? And the majority of them, it wasn't prescribed to them. A significant portion of them, of the patients start out with alcohol or marijuana and migrate to the opiate. And the thing about it is, once you find the drug that works for you, that's the one you'll stick with. And opiates take away a lot of feelings that people don't want to have. And truth is, one of the first uses for morphine was to treat alcoholism. And it didn't work, but the reason they used morphine to treat alcoholism was because people weren't violent and they didn't beat their wives. But then when people started overdosing on the morphine, this is not a substitute for alcohol. So
that's a great point. Well, thank you. Let's continue this conversation. When we return, we'll talk about living with addiction and treatment with Kent, who's won his battle with addiction through a medically assisted treatment program. You don't want to miss this.
Many teenagers don't understand the dangers and effects of marijuana use. Now it's time for Just the Facts, ma'am. An IQ is a score determined from standardized tests to determine intelligence. An IQ of 100 puts the average person in the 50th percentile of intelligence. Regular marijuana use during teenage years can cause a long-term 8-point drop in IQ. A loss of 8 IQ points drops them to the 29th percentile. For more information, go to drugfreeiowa.org.
After Kylie used coke, she stopped caring about school, friends, or who she had to steal from to get more of it. The story of addiction is all too familiar, but you can change it.
Sleeping in, Dad?
If you or someone you know is in recovery from addiction, share your story with the partnership at drugfree.org, because your story can change someone else's.
Hi, I'm Carnell. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time online, streaming shows, downloading files, and Skyping with family. That's why Mediacom recently boosted many of our internet speeds at no extra cost. We call it Always Faster Internet because we're always improving to meet your needs. And when you combine improved speeds with hassle-free Wi-Fi, you get super fast speeds all over the house. So more gets done even faster. The power to make a good thing even better, the power to simplify.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. Today we're talking about addiction and addiction treatment. We're joined by Kent, a survivor with a story you need to hear. Kent, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Peter.
You know, I know you've been a patient of Dr. Bollinger's, and you've done really well. You're doing some great things out there to help people. Tell us a little about yourself. Where are you from?
I grew up in Woodward, Iowa. It's a small town a little north of Des Moines.
And I presume regular small town family, parent life?
Yeah, I didn't have a great childhood, I wouldn't say. I think I was born with depression or something. I was never really happy, and I think that had to do with why I started getting into drugs at a young age.
When did you start?
Probably 12 or 13. I started drinking and then smoking pot. And it didn't take very long from there. I started taking LSD a lot, and I think by the time I was 16, I was using a needle to inject cocaine, and then crank, which is what we called meth back then.
Were you still in Woodward when this was going on?
Yep. But then around the age of 19 or 20, I can't remember that far back very good, I moved to South Florida. We seen the movie Scarface, and most people watch it and think how horrible, but me and my friends watched it and seen, like, look at all that cocaine. We got to go there. And so that's where we went.
So you weren't the only one in Woodward living like this?
No, there was just a small group of us, but I think I was hitting it harder than most everybody else from the very beginning. I took to it like a duck to water when it came to drugs.
So what was it like to go to Florida at that time?
It was would have been the early '80s, and yeah, the cocaine was everywhere. I overdid it, of course. I overdid every drug. At some point earlier in my life, I had just developed a mindset. I was just going to keep taking drugs as much as I could until it killed me. It just seemed like a good plan at the time, and I did. I pretty much stayed high the whole time. I managed to keep a job and all. But then when I was in my early 30s was when I found heroin, and it really answered all my prayers pretty much. It was the missing piece to my happiness, I thought. And so I had been able to maintain my drug use before that, but after a couple years of using heroin, that's when things started really falling apart.
Well, that's pretty amazing. From the time you were 18, 19 years old and you went to Florida up until almost 30, you regularly used drugs, and a lot of them were able to keep a job, keep everything afloat.
Yeah.
The ship didn't really start to sink till the heroin got a hold of you.
Yeah, growing up, it was like it was real important to maintain your drug use. You couldn't, be a lightweight, we called it, and so I always knew I had to work to be able to afford drugs. So yeah, that's how that went.
What we asked, when did that sort of come to Jesus moment come, where you actually started to come into a world where maybe some form of intervention or treatment was going to happen?
I hit all sorts of rock bottoms all along the way. I hear other people talk about their rock bottoms, and to me it's like that's just another Wednesday to me. I kept hitting new lows, and that would just strengthen my resolve to stay the course, keep using until it killed me. But then finally I had moved back up to Iowa. I had been put in jail. A girlfriend OD'd. She lived, but I didn't know it. I spent a few days in jail, and it messed with my head enough to where I thought, yeah, try it. So I came back to Iowa in 2001, went to a rehab. It didn't stick, of course. I kept using. In Iowa, I couldn't get as much heroin, but I got more meth, so it didn't help. And finally, at the age of 48, in jail with nothing to my name except a few clothes that were in my pickup truck that was impounded, with nothing, sitting in jail, it dawned on me that drugs weren't killing me fast enough, that it could go on forever. And that was kind of my moment of clarity, which I think is important for everybody. That's when I decided I wanted to help for myself, not because other people said it.
What did you go to jail for?
Well, that time I'd gotten the syringe. They asked to see it, and I brought it out, and then they tackled
Mostly
me.
drug-related
It was
incidents?
paraphernalia, yeah.
So you had a lot of years, up to 48,
Yeah.
16 to 48, 20-some years.
Yeah, I used heroin for
30-some
like
years.
15 years, so that's really long compared to not too many live that long.
No, the average life of a heroin user isn't that long.
Yeah.
You were pretty lucky.
Yeah.
Or unlucky, depending how you look at it.
I look at it as lucky. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's continue that story after the break. Thank you for sharing.
Oh.
When we come back, we'll talk more about Kent's personal experiences. Stay with us. You don't want to miss this.
You may have heard about synthetic drugs in the news and the fact that more Iowa teenagers who use them are ending up in the hospital. Synthetic drugs can be dangerous, but you can help prevent the threat. Learn about synthetic drugs and talk with your kids now. For sale does not mean safe to use.
Get help at drugfreeiowa.org.
Thousands of businesses have switched to Mediacom Business for fast and reliable internet, unlimited nationwide calling, and popular TV channels with sports package upgrades. And now, with our new business mobile data, they stay connected on the go. Mediacom Business is the simple and easy way for businesses to get all their telecommunication services from one provider, all for just $99.95 a month. Get a free mobile hotspot device with all 4 services. Mediacom Business. How can we help you?
So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice. And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. For most of us, it's hard to make sense of a world when addiction enters your life. It's like you're fighting an uphill battle with no place to go, yet success is possible. And Kent is back to talk more about his experiences and share a little bit about how success found his life. Kent, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, that sitting in jail, then I had court-ordered rehab I had to go to. And I went in with a different approach from the other times to where I really wanted it, because the other times I'd done rehabs, it's just, if you don't want it, it doesn't help a bit, you know. And I went in with the right attitude, but what really made the difference this time was they introduced me to Dr. Bollinger, who got me started on Suboxone.
So you recognize that as a big change, big difference.
Oh,
all the other
it
times.
was huge. I never would have stopped without Suboxone. I'm sure I would have used till I died. I'm sure of it.
Well, doctor, now you have a different perspective. We've got to hear Kent's story. How would you talk about meeting Kent and how you start addressing a situation like this?
Well, I remember meeting him because he was shaking like a leaf, and you couldn't close the door because he was nothing but a bundle of fear. And I started talking to him about the medication and explained to him the medication is not the answer, it's good counseling. And I have a list of 4 questions that I give to patients because a lot of them have been through treatment already and have been in counseling, and the focus is on the drug and getting off the drug and maybe the moods, the depression, the anxiety. But my approach is I need to know you, and if I can't meet you, I can't help you. And my 4 questions are what I never want to think about, what I'm afraid of and I hide from because I don't want anybody to see that in my life, what I've lost of myself that I don't know how to get back, and what I would be if I was free to be myself. And I give that to the patient. I gave that to Kent, and I said, I want you to sit down and write out for me how you see yourself, the person that you keep out of sight, that owns you, that you feel like nobody would ever want to see. Once I can see the person that's inside of you, that's locked up, that's alone, then we can start working on getting a good relationship with yourself and a good relationship with other people, because alone is dead. And Ken started working on that, and it's been a process, but I've seen him go from a shaken bowl of Jell-O to somebody who works, has a good relationship with a girlfriend, and is now actively engaged in trying to bring other people to life.
Now this is fascinating because Kent's own story talks about that place that he lost being before he was even a teenager, being pretty young. Is that sort of like what you go through, rebuilding a life from that far back?
What I try to focus on with people is this is not about being clean. This is about being free. If you focus on being clean, you'll fail because that's just trying not to do drugs. And if you don't have a loving, healthy relationship, and you don't tell people all you gotta do is love yourself and then other people can love you, I don't know how. So it's like, I'm going to give you the tools and try to work with you and get the counseling so you can appreciate the fact that you are a person who deserves to be loved. And once we get there, then we talk about safe people and how you get safe people to come into relationship with you. But the truth is, once you get your life back, then you have real friends and real enemies. Before that, it's fake, and fake is dead.
You know, that's great testament to the healing power of love and compassion. So Kent, you're working with the Harm Reduction Coalition?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and what you're giving there.
Yeah, well, like he was saying, it was a process for me, and it was rough at first. About 3 years into my recovery, I kind of had like a breakdown. because I simply didn't know how to deal with reality. I'd never learned how to do human relationships, and I was a mess, you know. But I kept working at it, and slowly things started getting better and more positive for me. And then right when I was really making progress, I got involved in the online recovery community on like Facebook, and I learned about harm reduction enough, and I was interested enough that I contacted the Iowa Harm Reduction Coalition that Sarah Ziegenhorn runs out of Iowa City. They're great people, and one thing led to another where we started a chapter in Des Moines, and we're providing the services where we meet the user where they're at without judgment, and we take steps to make it safer for them and to let them know we care, because dead people won't recover, and you know, that's our philosophy. And in doing this actual helping, it's done wonders for me. It's strength. It's part of my recovery, in fact, because I see the difference it makes and all, and it's a huge part of my recovery too.
Thank you so very much for sharing that. We come back after the break. We're going to invite Dr. Bollinger and Kent to share some insights and advice about medications, pain, addiction, whatever they want to say. But stay tuned, because what you learned may save a life, and it could be your own. You don't want to miss this. Children see magic in the world around them, and parents see the dangers.
There is hope for the future if we face it together.
Find out more about how you can protect your children from the risks of illegal drugs, prescription medications, and alcohol.
Go to drugfreeiowa.org.
I'm Quinn. At Mediacom, we believe customer service should be as simple as possible. So simple, in fact, you don't even have to dial a phone. All you need is our mobile care app, and you can request a call from a customer service agent, manage appointments, check for neighborhood outages, look up account info, and even reset equipment. And the best part, the mobile care app is absolutely free. The power to connect, right at your fingertips. The power to simplify.
You wouldn't walk through the halls of your school naked, yet without thinking. Many teens sext explicit photos of themselves to friends using cell phones, never thinking it'll go further. But once you hit send, you're exposed. You're out there in cyberspace for everyone to see. Sexting, it's dumb, it's dangerous, and it's against the law.
Watching your sister go through withdrawal is the last thing you expect to do. You hope she gets past it, but worry she'll relapse. The story of addiction is all too familiar, but you can change it.
That's 2 out of 3.
If you or someone you know is in recovery from addiction, share your story with the partnership at drugfree.org, because your story can change someone else's.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad, to my favorite part of the show, where we ask our guests to share some insights and advice with us. Pay close attention. It could make a difference in your life and the life of someone you love. We're back with Kent and Dr. Bollinger. And Kent, man, you've had over 30 years deeply in addiction. And you've come back to rebuilding a life. You almost like got your childhood back.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I mean, what do you share with people when you tell them about what you've been through?
I don't know. I thought, you know, at first I would talk about all the suffering I went through and all, but I recently had the opportunity to meet a few of the mothers that support harm reduction who have lost a child, and looking in their eyes, it hit me that I haven't suffered at all, really, compared to them. You know, I've had it easy, and so I'm really happy in life right now and really grateful for everything. If I could stand on the soapbox for just a second, the one thing I'd like to say is we have got to change how we view substance abuse. Our nation does. the criminal justice system does. The experts have already known that it's a mental health problem, not a criminal issue. They have no business doing it. Incarceration is less connection for a person, and people in addiction need more connections with people, so it's making the problem worse. We have to, everything we've done, the proof is right out the window, doesn't work. We know that, nothing's working. So we have to change how we view it before we can make changes. This stigma's gotta go. Everybody is addicted to something. Everybody uses something to get through the day. It's natural. I mean, dolphins do it, elephants do it. If that's not natural, what is it? And it's just it's a coping. It's natural. It's not good or bad, and we need to start viewing it that way. I'm not saying pamper the people that use, but quit treating them like criminals.
That is a great point. Doctor, I think that's testament to what you do.
Absolutely.
And how would you view this, and what would you share with our viewers
I
today?
wish that the medical community and the political community and the religious community would come to the understanding that this is about suffering. It's about people who are cut off, who are alone, who are trying to find a way to find a feeling in a thing that can't last and it won't replace relationship. And rather than being judgmental and saying, how could they be so crazy, realize, no, it's how desperate they are that makes them look crazy. And rather than treating people like they have a disease, realize that compassion will go a long ways in helping to cure the disease, but judgment won't. And Kent is a living testimony to the fact that if you can alleviate people's fears and you can actually meet the real person, you have the opportunity to bring that person back to life. And once you have a life and relationships, going to a substance doesn't seem as much of an option to choose.
Thank you so very much, both of you, sharing such a powerful story and understanding of how love, compassion, and caring can have a big part in helping with a crisis like this. And thank you for joining us today. Keep your eye on Mediacom MC22 for our next episode, where we explore Iowa stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Only on Mediacom MC22, your local programming leader.